Hi everyone, my name is Mahmud Khairul and I am a master's student at Kingston University London. I'm doing my master's at UX design. This is my show, my UX journey. Today we have a wonderful person, my colleague, my classmate. She's also a brilliant designer. In this UX journey, we're going to talk about every individual's way of thinking process or approach on their UX journey. Hi Jessica, and welcome to my really interesting show.
No,
Bright
it is.
morning.
I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, how are you, and how is everything going?
Yes, good. Sort of tucked away during lockdown. Working on projects at uni and also work. So, yes, busy. So it's not affecting me too much, which is great.
Yeah, and by the way, when we say busy, the UX designer, it's actually we're doing something. It's not we're busy with.
No, yeah, we're with work.
We're not busy like changing water on our filter. No, that's not
No.
that's not the busy. So I want to share more from Jessica, like what inspires her to be in this journey of UX, and what made her choose the UX path.
Mhm. So I'm Jess, and as Mahmoud has just mentioned, I'm a student at Kingston University, and I'm also a teaching assistant in one of the UX modules at Kingston University for the undergrads. I'm just coming to the end of some freelance work I've been doing for H2H, which is a charity. That's a sort of short introduction. And was it why I chose UX? Was that the first question? Oh no.
Yeah, it was. You answered half of it, but what
Yeah.
motivated you to come to this industry actually?
Oh yeah, brilliant. So I've worked as a mental health worker for 5 years, and before that I did a fine art degree. And I think whilst I was doing my fine art degree, a lot of my fine artwork was inclusive of participants, ironically. So it was community-based art. So I was always sort of interested in working with people, even as an artist. And that when I graduated, I started working as a mental health worker, as an arts worker, supporting people to learn art. And through that process, when I was creating things within the service to do with the service users, I would always end up doing things like focus groups, and I didn't even know what UX was at that point. So I would be asking people like, what do you want to learn, and like what things are interesting to you, and what helps you in your recovery. So the whole point of doing art was to help them in their recovery. And there's also different things we could do within this service. There was gardening and that sort of thing. So I became the recovery coordinator as a job share. And that was a lot about designing how the service runs and what people get out of it. So, I was really interested in what people needed, and also trying to balance that with what the charity needed. So you're already talking about user goals and stakeholder and business goals already, and trying to bring those together. So that was my sort of first foray into user experience without even knowing it. And I think and now I'm really passionate researcher. And I think that's why I'm so passionate, is because people do have real needs. And that's important for me to find that out. Otherwise, the whole process is completely, arbitrary. There's no point doing it if you haven't got a good research. So from there, I moved to another charity, and we started doing things like workshops for people in their recovery and coaching. So the coaching side of things was supporting people to get jobs and back into employment, and it's really having to empathize with that person, because their situation was really difficult, and sometimes nothing that you could actually imagine yourself. So empathy was a huge thing in trying to help people in their journeys, because what you might have thought was easy actually was very difficult for that person. So you really had to imagine what it was like to be in that position. So I think, as you can imagine, doing frontline work for 5 years is quite hard. And I was thinking about extending my education in some way. And as a frontline worker, they say that, you know, your life expectancy as a frontline worker is about 5 years. And I definitely felt that my own mental health. I thought, right, I do need a change. And that's when I was looking into something different, and I found UX design. You know, it had some of the creative elements that I really missed, actually, from being a fine artist and doing a fine art degree, but at the same time still had that people-centered approach that I really was drawn to. So it seemed like the perfect thing to do for me, and it sort of married those passions of creativity and empathizing with people and trying to create solutions that were relevant for them. So I started doing a few freelance projects, and I joined the Interaction Design Foundation, and that is a fantastic non-profit that I have used for about 2 years now, and that's educated me in my UX journey. It's been really great, and it's a great price, you know, great tutors, and I would definitely recommend anyone starting their journey to look on there. And after that, I joined my master's degree at Kingston University, and now coming to the end of that, and very excited about, you know, going into the world of work. So for me, you know, I'm definitely interested in health tech and services. You know, services and health tech is definitely my sort of point of interest. Yeah.
Excellent. Wow, that's a nice. I mean, even I didn't know this long journey that you had. It's
Yeah.
really nice. It's very, I mean, when I hear the story when people put their soul and heart and they're really passionate and the empathical approach, it really connects, like how much connected they are in their UX journey. This is why I'm saying everyone's UX journey is different. Everyone is connected to their work, to their project in a different approach and way. I was a visual designer before, and I took the leap of faith to be very honest, and started this UX journey because I was really passionate. And when I was discussing with my colleague on my previous job, they were not passionate enough. So I was questioning myself that if I am passionate, I just go, and I need to find those people who are exactly same passionate as me, and then go and tell my journey. So that's really nice to hear from you, Jess. And also, I'd like to mention that she is a brilliant researcher. I have seen her work. This is one of the reasons I wanted to have her on my first show to make people more interested in the UX journey. Second question, Jess, I want to ask, like, a lot of people probably have similar kind of journey, not exactly same, that they are from the different background. I have seen people from medical background, from marketing background. They want to make a shift, and somehow it attracts them. So what are the early challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think it's I mean, as a career changer, it can be quite daunting to make that switch. So I think just initially it was about educating myself in that field and understanding what it was about, and, you know, learning the terminologies. And as I mentioned before, the Interaction Design Foundation, you know, really helped me with that. And I think secondly, it was a confidence thing, because you know, you think, oh, could I work in tech? You know, is that for me? And I think especially, you know, as a woman as well, that's a sort of barrier going into it. You're thinking, oh gosh, you know, AI, emerging technology, which is something that I found very passionate about. You know, first of all, when we were specializing within, you know, UX, I thought emerging technology probably isn't for me. It's probably too complex. And I spoke with my lecturer, and she was like, no, it's fine. Just come along. And, you know, and then suddenly, you know, you just learn as you go. I think, you know, keep in mind that learning as you go is absolutely fine, and it's about not putting too much pressure on yourself to get that first job. You know, as your show is called, it is a journey, and you have to go on that journey. Obviously, having a goal of the job is what everyone wants at the end of it. But I think for me, reading, you know, I've read so many books, and I think I have done lots of courses online through the Interaction Design Foundation. So for me, like, it's a general interest in it as well, like as a hobby. It's, you know, I enjoy doing it in my free time. You know, I enjoy like thinking about it. So I think, you know, having the passion for it is a really good start, because you're going to want something to drive you when you've got a full-time job and you come home after work and you have to sit down and read a book or do something like a course. You know, you're going to have to find that time, and you're going to have to, you know, it's a hard thing to do actually, because you are working full-time and you are trying to make a change. So I suppose, like, in summary, is not to be intimidated by it. Take it one step at a time. And the first thing is to educate yourself, just by reading, or, you know, on free online courses, or just, you know, anything online. And actually, one thing that did really help me was networking. So I think my partner is the developer, and he had drinks where people would discuss sort of technical issues and problems, and they used to be on Fridays after his work, and they were open to anyone. It wasn't just a work thing. And I knew that the head of UX would be there, so my partner said, hey, when you come along and just, you know, ask him lots of questions. And I was like, great, yeah. So that's what I did. And he was the one that suggested I do a master's, and he also suggested the Interaction Design Foundation, and also suggested do lots of reading. So, you know, that's what I did. And then later on, he suggested I go to, this was in Oxford, the Oxford meetup, the UX meetup. And that was really interesting. So there was lots of talks, and I got to chat to lots of different people at different parts of their journey as well. And it started to become a little bit clearer. So definitely find your local UX meetup. Like, they're still running online, which is great. And when hopefully, you know, we get through this pandemic, you know, we can meet up again. But there's so many UX meetups when I came to London. I was spot for choice, because in Oxford there's like one a month, and I would like look forward to it. But in London there's just so many. It's hard to choose which one you want to go to. So definitely UX meetup. Get into the, you know, scene of people and chat with people. You know, people are incredibly helpful and lovely. So yeah, definitely just get out there.
Interesting. Yeah. So do lots of reading, be confident, don't get carried away by all the tech words that people say. Read a lot of books. And again, I think I have said a lot of time during my session while I was teaching few students that connect. You have to connect. You need to speak up. This is all UX about. If we are just sitting in the corner of the room, it's not going to help. We need to connect. We need to network. So yeah, we have come to that that time now where I want to see how Jessica does her approach while doing a UX. It's not going to be too detailed. It's just what she puts her in her mind before starting any project, any work. So Jessica, if you would love to share your screen.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll share something I've done for university, and as I said, it's going to be a rough approach, but I can talk through the approach generally. So yeah, if you make me the host, and I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, share. Brilliant. And is that sharing?
Yes, we can see.
Fantastic. So yeah, this is a project I did in university, and it's a assistant for the elderly. So this was a project I did that was looking at conversation design, which is a really interesting part of UX. So this is I'll just run through my approach that I took on that journey. So for me, you know, the initial stage of empathizing, research is a really important for me. Like, it has to be done right, and it has to be done well. Like, too often, you know, people talk about the features that they've created, and they work backwards trying to, you know, prove it through the research, you know. And I think that, you know, one thing I've always been aware of is really be aware of your bias and assumptions you make before the project. Like, everyone has them, and you want to prove them right, but actually, you know, once you let go of that, it's actually quite freeing to see what comes your way, and, you know that actually the research is going to give you more relevant ideas rather than off your own bias thinking, oh, this will be great for the users, I know this, and it's kind of letting go of that ego and saying like, yes, the users do know best, they always know best because they're going to be using the product. You do not know their deep sort of inner thoughts, and you have to interview them, or some sort of research. And I think choosing the right research methodology is really important. So I really love diary studies, for instance. I love getting the context of a person. That tells you so much. When you do a diary study on people, that you find out their morning routine or their habits, and that in some projects I've worked on and I've done a diary study, I was like, oh yeah, that's going to really impact when they're rushing towards work. That's really going to impact how they use the app. And this amazing feature that I've thought of is not going to be good unless, they have the time to use it. So, diary studies are really important to get the context.
Sorry to interrupt, Jessica.
Yeah.
Could you tell us in short, like what exactly is the diary studies and what do they do in the diary studies? Because I think many of the people
absolutely. So a diary study. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you broke up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go. A diary study. So I gave. So it's when I give users a series of questions to complete throughout the day, maybe 2 or 3, and at certain times of the day they would write about their morning. On this particular occasion, I'm talking about it was their commute to work. So I was looking at an app for commuters, and then maybe their evening routine. And during this time, I'd ask them to take some photos if they'd like. So that was quite an interesting observation to see what they took photos of as well. So once you've got that information, it gives you a better sense of where your user is and where they will be using your project. Yeah. And this will then, give you some really deep insights into how you create your product. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Oh, no problem. And obviously user interviews. This was, an observational study I did for this one. And observational studies are very important as well, because sometimes people lie in interviews and they don't say the truth. And sometimes when you watch someone do something, or they can't remember or they misremember. So sometimes, doing an observational study is really interesting. I chose this because obviously this is a voice assistant. So I chosen an observational study for this module because obviously it's someone using a virtual assistant, and I needed to see how they would interact with it. So it's about choosing the right research method as well. And you can see that I haven't done any surveys early on because this was a beginning of a project. There was so much to find out. It was just about getting that like qualitative research initially. And as you can see, like defining the problem statement for me was really important, and to get that right, and then storyboarding. And you can see here, I've got challenging assumptions, and as I mentioned, that's something that I really work on, is trying to think about, okay, what are my assumptions, what are my biases, and they might be right, but let's let the user prove that to me. I'm not going to try and sort of make the research prove that to me, or try and guide it to prove it, if that makes sense. And obviously, this is a design thinking methodology. People might know that methodology. And then you can see, obviously, go into prototyping and testing. And then obviously testing is as important to me as the research stage. Every stage is, but it's about taking the time to test early and make those changes quickly before you invest a lot of time in the UI. So obviously this goes through my findings and the problem statement I have here, and the persona and the journey map I've created. Diary studies, they're fantastic for journey mapping, because they really give you a sense of who your user is. It's just, personas and user journey. So this is like a use case. And I did create a UML for this project, which was to help developers understand how it would work. And I think that's really important. So not so much focusing on the UML right now, but thinking about how we communicate our ideas to developers. That's a really important working part of the process, and that has to be done really well, I think.
Yeah, just want to add here for the viewers here that what Jess said, when we are developing from the UX perspective, we don't only we are solving problem obviously, but we also need to know how we transfer our knowledge to our developer team, because developer team will just take our knowledge and implement on the software or the app that they're building. So it should be an easy transition as well for them. So as she said, UML is a great way of doing that.
Mm. Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. And I think having a developer as a partner, that helps, when I'm explaining things I'm doing and he's like, yeah, but how does that work? And I feel like, oh yeah, I've got to think about that, not create this like marvelous design in my eyes. And then suddenly it'll take like 10 years to implement, obviously. But yeah, and I think another aspect that comes to mind just in the process and look at this is drawing. And I obviously being, a fine artist or being an artist generally, I love to draw. And I think for me, I can sit there and scribble away and ideas will come to me as well. It's a good ideating process for me. And it gives you time to think and, I think that's really important as well, is get your ideas out. There's drawings and deliverables you do for yourself, and there's drawings and deliverables you do for other people, and I have two separate things.
Yeah, okay.
So there's the messy scribbles I do for myself that help ideate that no one would understand. And then, I refine those into a more sophisticated visual diagram for people to understand. So yeah, there's two types of ideating and deliverables for me.
It opens up the brain as well. It's a very good brain exercise. Very good brain exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and it's enjoyable,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's sort of the end of, again, this use case, and that's sort of the end of just a quick overview of the journey. And I suppose another thing is, I think the UX process can, when you're working on an end-to-end project, actually can get really overwhelming. And I've spoken to a lot of people who just feel like I just don't know what to do next. There's too much going on, and it's just to feel like okay in that space where you're feeling uncomfortable, and saying to yourself, okay, I feel uncomfortable. That's fine. I just need to pick one thing to do, and I'll do that, and then it will tell me what I need to do next after I do that. So it's about feeling uncomfortable in the mess, because our job as designers is to take all that mess and make it into something usable, relevant. So you're in the mess, just feel comfortable in the mess. It's fine.
Correct.
You're meant to be there.
Yeah. And we also need to give exactly same amount of focus on every single element that we do. If we're doing UX journey, we need to really put our thoughts in it. Not just, okay, let's just do the UX journey in a very small, short time, and then we do the use case in a different, with lots of important. No, we need to put focus on every single element to get the best result, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think the process will change for each and every project you do, depending on what's good for the project. And as a UX designer in my very early stages of my career, I'm sure that it will change once I have real work, sort of experience as well, working with other UX designers, because at the moment a lot of the work I'm doing is on my own. So I think there's a lot to be said about working in a team, and about not being too rigid in any approach you take, because I think actually I'm sure my process will change as well. Just do what's good for the project, I think has always been my mentality.
Yeah. All right. If you don't mind, maybe stop sharing the screen and
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah. All right. So last two questions, Jessica. Really a lot of things that we learned. Last two question is, do you think there's a certain way that everyone must follow? Because I got this question that brother or Mahmoud, okay, what's next? What's next? What change should I follow? What change, like, should I do my user story first? Should I do my UX journey first? What do you think? Like, they always end up asking this question, and this is like a most common question that I get from the juniors or someone in the industry as well. Even though that person is there for 2-3 years, they still ask this question. Yeah, what's your take on that?
I think that I think everyone has a methodology they follow. So, that be the double diamond or the design thinking methodology. And that does sort of clarify the process for you a little bit. So yeah, I mean, for me, I would always as you said, research, and then persona, user journey. But it depends what you're working on. I mean, like, if you're doing a redesign of something, then you're maybe going to start with doing a task flow, or thinking about a hierarchy of tasks, because you're thinking about the information architecture. I mean, if you're creating a project from the start, then you're going to be using, you're going to be doing research, and then you're going to be developing personas and user journeys to understand their current journey. So I think that, like, my question is to really understand the UX process in order to utilize the parts of it you need for the project you need, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
Because
does.
there is no correct answer to a perfect flow. It really, because you can start picking, you can start using tools at different points where you are in the design cycle. So that's probably not a helpful answer.
No, totally fine. It's sometimes people get really overwhelmed that they have to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel I asked few of my students that, why are you doing this? Can you justify that this is why you have done the UX journey or this journey? But they have very little answer. They just think that it's a part of the UX flow and they have to do it. But it's certainly not that. As you said, when you're redesigning something, maybe the task flow is important, on which steps that they think that people should be focused on more and where they should focus on less. So thank you so much, actually, to clear me out as well. Last question, Jessica, I don't want to hold you more, is if someone you think is planning to move or planning to start a career on UX, what are the motives you have for them? What do you think the opportunity from you could be, it's just from point of view, what do you think the future of UX, and what are the opportunities for UX?
So the future of UX, what sort of things? I mean, for me, the very exciting part of UX is emerging technology, machine learning, artificial intelligence, especially for me in the health tech industry, because I really feel that's, especially with things that were happened with COVID, and people have had to access things a lot of the time remotely. I think there's a really interesting space there. So for me, I find that very interesting and something I would like to explore in my career. But I think maybe advice would be just to look to see what other industries out there, like service, like working on services that go online. That's a really interesting idea. I mean, especially with COVID, I think a lot of services will have to go online now, or have to be prepared to go online for something like this if it ever happened again. And I think for me is part of my project for working with the elderly was trying to incorporate them more into our community, and so that they can basically spend longer in their own homes. I think that's really important for them, and that was a really interesting topic for me. But for me, it's really broad. There's so much out there. The only thing is to explore the industries you could be a UX designer, because there's some really interesting things you could do rather than just e-commerce. I know that sounds really
No, that's thank you so much, Jessica. I understand totally. Like, even when we talk about UX, we get really excited because we're just passionate about it. And there's so many things going on and so many new things coming, and we can totally relate as well. And the reason we love UX, probably for me, if you ask, it's because I am the one who is taking the logical decision. I am the one who think logically. There's always a justifying reason behind it, that why this has happened, why the brain works 2 or 3 times faster, I guess. It always keep asking why, and always try to understand, dig deep, okay, how this has happened. Thank you for your time, Jessica. In this, I ruined your Saturday, I know.
no,
And
it's fine. No, you didn't. No.
uh, I'm gonna leave Jess' LinkedIn profile. So if you guys want to connect with her, you can just send invitation, and that would be all right, I think, from Jess as well. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us as well. Probably we'll come up with a different individual, different personality on the next session. Thank you, Jess. And that's all for today. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.